All right, so Bella, this is a review of what we just talked about. I notice here I have some cells. Just because it's one cell doesn't mean it's unicellular. It's a cell that would then make up the tissue of the lining or the stomach itself. So I have cells, tissues. This is part of the stomach. It's not the whole stomach. It's what's going to make the stomach up, right? You put enough tissues together, you get the whole organ. You put all of the organs for the digestive system together, you get an organ system. And then once you do that, you have an organism, a living thing, that's made up of more than one cell. And those cells are very special, aren't they? They digest. They are not there for respiration. They are not there to control the body. They are not there to move blood around the body. They are there to digest your food. They are very specialized. They have very certain jobs that they fulfill. The first system that I want to talk about, this is where you might want to open up that book of yours. You should see a skeleton on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you should see some boxes, and it's going to look a little bit something like this. We're going to talk about the skeletal system. Kiddos, the skeletal system makes it very easy on us. What is the main organs of the skeletal system? The bones. Now, I'm not making you memorize all of the bones. So don't get ahead of yourself and think, oh man, when I get to anatomy and physiology in school, it's going to be easy. Because what's the main organs? The bones. No, then, Claire, they start making you memorize all the bones. And you start thinking, I hate the skeletal system. It's so hard. So how am I supposed to remember all these bones? It is hard. You will spend a lot of time in the lab studying the bones of the human body if you take anatomy and physiology and you're going into nursing or to be a doctor or something. It's important. For us, what are some good examples of bones? Sure, it sounds like I'm 500 miles away from the microphone now. The skull. It protects your brain. You can see the skull on your example picture there. The vertebrae, or the spine. I need you to know both of those words in case they use that on a test. Your vertebrae in your spine protects your spinal cord, which comes off of your brain. That's why your skull and your spinal cord are attached the way they are, because right out from under the backside of your brain comes your spinal cord, which is how your body sends and receives signals from all over the different parts of your body. Your ribs are very important. They offer your heart and your lungs protection. So we're just going to stop with those three. Skull, vertebrae, or the spine, and the ribs. I'm not going to talk about any others for right now. I see a lot of y'all trying to write all this other stuff down here. We'll come back to that in just a second. We know that bones are the main organs, and the bones for us right now have four main functions. Function number one is protection. We have very vital organs in our body that cannot be pushed and prodded and damaged. Otherwise, it would cause catastrophic damage to us, maybe even ending our lives. If we did not have a skull surrounding our brain and we slipped off the slide at recess, what if we bruised the part of our brain that tells our heart to beat? I mean, I don't know, like, how bad of a bruise is it? Does my heart beat like half as much? I'm probably going to die. Does my heart start skipping a beat every 10 minutes? I'm probably not going to die, but that's not safe to have your heart not on rhythm, right? You'd need to see a doctor for that to make sure you get back on rhythm. I don't know what would happen. What if I whacked the part of my brain that made me forget everything Mrs. Klein has taught me? And then I go back into her room to take a test, and she's like, you didn't annotate. And you're like, Anna, what? And then she's looking at you like you're crazy. Like, annotation, the thing we've only done all year long. And you're like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Right? Because your brain controls all of that. It's extremely important for you to understand that. The skull is there so that you don't damage that. Now, who's ever been at their house after a bad storm and had the power and the internet kicked off? That's really annoying, isn't it? We have something inside of our body that is very similar to the power and the internet. And that is our spinal cord. It comes out of our brain and goes down through our spine and then branches out, just very similar to the way power or Wi-Fi would. Our spine protects our spinal cord from damage. It sends and receives messages all throughout our body. You take your hand, you touch the hot stove, you burn it because of conduction. You don't keep your hand on there very long, do you? It is like an immediate jerk back of your hand. That is because you're sending and receiving messages back and forth between your brain at speeds that it's really hard to comprehend how quickly it gets there. The way it gets there is super cool. I don't think we'll get a chance to study that. I'll show you if we get through with the body systems. The way that it jumps between these nodes of the nerves is really cool. But if we didn't have our spinal cord and it damaged, just like when the tree falls over on the lines during a storm, if we damage certain connections, I might touch the stove and there's no service. If there's no service between my hand and my brain sending messages, I'm not going to get the message that this hurts. I know that's hard to understand. If the nerves in your hand are not sending messages to your brain, you don't know to pick your hand up. Well, that's also going to greatly damage your hand if you put your hand on a stove and don't move it, right? Well, it smells like hamburger helper in here, Mom. What's going on? Get your hand off the stove again. Oh, man. And you pull your hand up and it's got like horrible burns. It's very important that our brain is able to communicate back and forth. So having that protection is extremely important. I don't want something whacking my heart because that could cause all sorts of damage. So, right, if I played football with no ribs, the first shot that I took in the chest would probably kill me. It would knock all the air out of me for sure because my lungs are back there too. But it would probably shatter your heart. And here comes another person trying to play because Mr. B's gone. You can't do that. You have to have that protection. Bones allow us to move. They partner up with the muscles, and we have hinges and joints, and there's like these ball sockets that we'll get to see later on. Yes, it's like this ball, and it goes into this socket, and it moves around like this. It's in your hips, and it's in your shoulders. If you've ever seen some of the pitchers in baseball after they get injured, most of the injury is right there in that ball and socket and their rotator cuff because they've been throwing too much or trying to throw curveballs since they were in 5th grade, which is ridiculous. I'm not joking. And you can't do that motion while your body is still growing. It's not healthy. And then you cause damage as you get older. Our bones give us our shape. They give us our shape. I think I still have that copied. Whoops, wrong one. Yes. This is a what? Raising your hand. No, you're not raising your hand. Kennedy. It's a horse. How did you know it was a horse? It looks like a horse. It has the shape of a horse. Our skeletal system gives us our shape. If you see a human skeleton, we will in a few minutes, you're going to say, oh, I know what that is. It's the shape of a person. The one thing that the skeletal system does that is a little odd, very odd, and it probably will show up on an EOG. They love this question. What's the function of the skeletal system? And you're thinking, it's movement or protection. And you read the answers and you're like, oh, crud, movement and protection are not in there. Yes, it gives us our shape. And you read the answers again, you're like, what else do the bones do? They actually do make the red blood cells that are flowing through your blood right now. They make the red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells are super cool. They're like little mini rafts or like a tube. If you've ever been tubing on a river. Who's been tubing on the river before? They are like little mini rafts, And instead of people sitting down in there, the way that the blood cell is shaped, there's this little divot in the middle. And the way oxygen is shaped, it fits perfectly right inside of there, like a person going down a river. And it moves the oxygen through our bloodstream to where we need it in our bodies. And then we pick back up the carbon dioxide, take that back to our lungs, and we breathe that out before we even really know about it. So I'm going to turn it to this page. I'm going to bring this down a little bit, and I'm going to pause my screen and leave it on pause for you while you write these notes down in that booklet I just gave you. I have no doubt with 4 minutes left that this video will probably end before I get to the end of muscular system. I won't record another one. I'll just pick up tomorrow. Muscles shock are how we move. No one in here is shocked by that whatsoever. All the movement in your body is controlled by muscles. That is the raising your hand, the moving your pencil across the desk, that is breathing in and out, that is swallowing, that is moving the food through your body right now. All of the movement. Your heart is pumping. That is moving blood through your body and carrying oxygen around your body as well. All of our muscles together, again, you have cells. You have muscle cells, which makes muscle tissue, which makes a very special muscle. You put all those together, you get the muscular system. All of our muscles make up our body's muscular system. Muscles help us generate heat. They help us generate heat. Charlotte gets very cold. Her arms come together and she starts to shiver. That small shaking movement is your muscles trying to generate heat and get your body temperature back to where it is supposed to be. Muscles help keep us upright. Yes, the skeleton helps us do that as well, but if we didn't have muscles, there would be nothing to pull the skeleton and be upright. Muscles move blood through our bodies. They help us breathe. They help us digest food. Yes, peeing and pooping also is involved with muscles. And we're going to cover that, and we're just going to have to be able to kind of giggle and move on because it's part of the body systems. And they help us regulate our body temperature. There are these teeny tiny little muscles. Sometimes, who's ever gotten goosebumps before when your arm's gotten cold, right? Who's ever had your arm get sweaty before? The same hands can stay up. Those are controlled by these little teeny tiny muscles around your pores that relax when they want to let sweat out and tighten up to those little goosebumps when they're trying to keep things in. You do not have to take a moment to raise your hand, stand up, and walk around. Some of y'all do enough of that in here as it is. When you choose to do something like raise your hand, when you choose to walk around, those are called voluntary muscles. You are choosing to do that. Voluntary muscles are the ones that you can control. Most of the voluntary muscles are the ones that help us move our bones around. Running, walking, riding a bike, swimming, waving your arms around, eating your favorite sandwich. You are choosing to move those muscles in your jaw, which, again, it starts to aid in digestion. Voluntary muscles. You're choosing to move them. While we were just raising our hands, while she was just opening the door and walking to the back, during all of that, she was also breathing and blinking. Her heart's beating, and guess what? She's not having to think about any of those things. All of that is being taken care of on its own through things called involuntary muscles. Involuntary. These are muscles that you do not control. Some of them, Elishba, kind of are in a little gray space. Can I choose to not breathe? Now, at some point, you're going to have to start breathing again, right? I can choose to hold my breath while I go to the bottom of the pool to get the pool toy and come back up to the top. But while I'm doing that, my heart's still beating, right? All of us are blinking right now, keeping our eyes with water in them. All of that is being taken care of with involuntary